And each one of us, once we switch off the YouTube feed for today, what's the best course of action, or the best way of thinking in order to get into a course of action to then lead to positive streaming of our energies?
I would say it's the two questions everybody can ask themselves. What am I fearful of? And what do I want instead?
Mm.
Just do both. Don't sit down just and think when you've seen the primetime television or you've seen your YouTube feed or whatever, oh my God, the world is going to hell. When you are there and you think that those in power have gotten you, then you are caught. Then you are in the trap, because the trap of politics today is to make people believe that there's no alternative, for instance, to armament and militarism in Europe. And that's what we should invest more in than anything else. Those types of false theories can be looked through. People are not stupid. Come on. They may be overburdened, as you say. They may be tired when they come home from work, etc. But anybody can sit down and say, what kind of world would I look like? But we are prevented from that because we are told it's going to hell. And that's where I would say we have some cynics and we have some alarmists. But the system lives from the Tina complex. There is no alternative to what we say now as elites. And I would say there are only alternatives. And the moment you have seen that there are only alternatives to war, armament, and whatever, because it will end bad, of course, at some point, then free your mind or your thinking, and allow yourself to be positive in the sense, not only what do I fear, even what do I perhaps think will happen, but what kind of world would I like to see, big and small, and how can I take the first step together with my family, my friends, my little group, or whatever it is? All big movements have always begun with small groups, doing something, thinking new thoughts. And I believe in the power of good ideas. I mean, that's where the superstructure, to speak Marxist, is much more important. Ideas are much more important, in my view, than material stuff and rewards. But what you're pointing to, and I'd like to say just a few words about that, is dependent intellectuals. They won't help us. If you sit in a state institute financed by the government, you don't criticize that government. That has stopped long ago. The reason I can say what I do is that we are not financed by any corporation and not financed by any government at the Transnational Foundation here. We are people financed. And people obviously like what we do and say because they support us in what we do and say. So long story short is, you've got to be sure that you free your mind, you free your research, you free your space to say, I refuse to accept the terror that is inbuilt in telling us that the only way to go now is more warfare and armament and nuclear weapons. It's a liberation. It's a peace liberation of your mind to begin with, and then inaction. And that's what I think we should address the question of cynics. Cynics are the people who say, oh, no matter how good an organization is, it was always created to help the United States dominate the world. I mean, you see people now, when I speak about reforms of the UN, who under the YouTube video say something like, oh, it was never meant to be anything of a serious organization. Just to pull it down, it's useless. You know, those are the cynics who are damn dangerous, because they are putting more power in the hands of those who have destroyed the UN so far. And the UN is a terrible, important, non-violent. It's the most Gandhian document ever signed the most Gandhian document ever signed by governments. And we need to make it much more democratic and discuss how can we make the United Nations and other organizations much more powerful, right? And secondly, we have the alarmists. And I have an increasing psychological, political problem, moral problem with these people who say that we are approaching a third world war and it will be nuclear holocaust for us all and the world will be gone. Excuse me, how the hell do they know that? How do they know that? We have had nuclear weapons used one time. How do they know at what time we will have some countries shooting at each other seriously and a larger war, you know? How do they know that that will lead to tactical nuclear weapons being used and then strategic nuclear weapons, and we will all be gone? What they are doing is nothing scientific. They are promoting, they're letting off the psychological frustrations they have themselves, in my view. They're not serious. They're not serious scientists who do. And then the final thing about that is they cause, by those doomsday preachings, they cause people to give up. It is the worst thing you can do to humanity is to tell them that there's no hope and there's only nuclear weapons in front of us and we will all be dead, if this and that continues 2 more weeks, right? Never ever say that. One, because it's unserious, not serious from a scientific point of view, a scholarly point of view. Two, you're destroying people's hopes. And if you destroy hopes, you destroy their ability to do something. They sit down and give up. And that is, in my view, a crime. It's a moral crime. It's a scholarly crime to take away people's wish and hopes for a better world and for a better world for their children. That is our damn duty as intellectuals, not to go and indirectly by alarmism and cynicism support the militarists and the if you will, the destroyers at the moment. There are alternatives to that, and there are only alternatives to that.
Yeah. And
things could be thought in completely different ways. Defensive defense, we can easily create a world without nuclear weapons. It's not, I mean, I'm sorry, we can easily think out what it would look like. And then when you know what it looks like, you have an idea, you've had a democratic decision about it, then it will be implementable. There's no doubt that if you have a good idea and you have enough millions of people who want it, it can be implemented. But it can't be implemented by following or discussing only what Jens Stoltenberg is saying.
And just to underscore that, I mean, we have a lot of historical moments when we actually did manage to implement good ideas. The INF Treaty, the whole new arms control treaties that we had toward the end of the Cold War and then in the 1990s, those were complicated treaties with mechanisms, with control mechanisms, and they worked. They worked while they worked, and then it was a political decision to give them up. But they worked while they worked, and we have people like Scott Ritter who tell us,
no, created a more secure Europe.
We had a more secure Europe. I mean, we had ways of de-escalating, and we did de-escalate, and we did actually reduce the number of nuclear warheads. All of that happened. I mean, it's absolutely not impossible.